on MMA? LaTB. You want to know who to put it in your parlay? LaTB. You want to know our DraftKings stay away? LaTB. So, who has the Leslie Smith underdog pick? Who was the Mexican dude and the lesbian chick? Everybody say it me. Let's ball with the bean. Who's that out there living their dream? Let's ball with the bean. Who's that still smoking on the green?
Living that dream. What's up, everyone? How's it been going? Another week in the books. We had many other venues kind of keep us entertained with a lot of these AFCs and undershows. Some real interesting talent out there. But real quick, how did your combat sports weekend end up going?
Nothing. I had no combat sports this week. You know what I did? I actually would say I probably watched 3 hours of old boxing.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
So I guess I did have combat
That's a
sports
base. You're building your base there.
Of course, I watched GSP Bisping. We can talk about that later. Of course, I watched the.
Well, we should talk about
usual,
that right now.
I watched the usual shit, but
right.
I really got into.
The Preston Princey.
Hey, the press conference, GSP.
GSP in the room, guys. GSP. So, thanks for listening, everyone. New listeners every day. We really appreciate it here at LaTB on Twitter.
Little UK listeners. Who else do we have to add from Finland? Little Finland.
I'm expecting Poland to pop right around the corner.
I can't believe Poland hasn't
jumped on the train. I agree. It must be our English.
The two things that I can't believe haven't. Poland, because we are Joanna dick riders. Not to say that Joanna has a dick. Tit riders. That's not a good.
Lip lovers.
We are Joanna fans.
Champion fans.
Violence fans. And also Czech people. I feel we talk about Czech fighters all the time.
Polish fighters specifically.
Why isn't anyone... We have no other Bullet and Valentina countries following us. She's from like 3 countries.
Yeah, hers is a little bit rough if we want to get into that. But I do think we also have some Indian from India.
India followers.
And I know Billion Strong. Definitely love having you on the wagon. Get the word out there, India. We count on you.
Yeah, and tell us what fighters you want us to talk about. We're huge fans. So even if it's smaller guys on the scene and we need to check people out, feel free to tweet us at Lesbo and the Bean on Twitter.
Definitely. So, being so scared of Michael Bisping, the last press conference ended up getting a little wild. I feel like the touching that's going on at the end of both of these things is being incited by Bisping because GSP realized even in this right at the end when he pushed back, he smiled at the cameras immediately like, oh yeah, this is a photo op. Like, I get it now. Like, it's not, we don't have to be angry at each other to create a good story.
A backstory a little.
Right.
To make people care about this fight at
something
all.
And be like, give them footage for later to talk about. But Bisping is saying everything absolutely right. I love his brashness. Him hating on the crowd.
Speaking of this
heel
fight.
City.
Yeah,
he's
the best heel.
Yes, he's a perfect bad guy.
But he loves it. He's a perfect bad guy.
And he understands it.
He's a bad guy like a Bond villain.
Yes.
It's a perfect type of bad guy.
Absolutely. And he understands the whole position of the heel, and he's like, oh, there's an A and a B, and I'm the B, but he's right in GSP's face, and I think it's throwing GSP off a bit, not only in his layoff, but nobody's really come that hard at him, and Bisping has a lot of real good points, like, I weigh 205 pounds regularly. Like, I weigh 210. I cut down to 185. You've never fought 85 in your life, and you're small for the 170 division. Big points.
Yeah.
They make a lot of sense.
I feel like I'm creating a rumor, but because Brian Callen's not so schlick with things that aren't supposed to be talked about yet, and he boxes at a gym where sometimes Luke Rockhold goes. And I could be making something out of nothing. You guys take it for what it is. So he boxes at a gym with Luke Rockhold, and he's on Fighter and the Kid. And so Brian Callen says to Brennan, yeah, he's fighting Robert Whittaker next, right? And Brennan's like, no, I don't think he has a fight anywhere. Robert Whittaker's healing from an injury. Why would Brian Callen think that, who has zero interest, or not zero, but he's not really educated on the UFC. So I just think, did Luke Rockhold tell him that he's fighting Robert Whittaker next? And that would send everyone into a, no, you can't fight for the interim belt before the guy fights for the title. But you could, if GSP or Bisping both plan on retiring after this fight, so it doesn't matter who gets it, and Luke and Robert actually are fighting for the real title, because neither guy plans on actually going to fight either of those guys again. Does that make any sense?
I think that's a great angle of seeing it. It's a point of view that I could see being really rational. I like it. I'm going to mull that over a little while, but a conspiracy that I really liked, I think I touched on it a bit before, was the one that keeps rolling around in my head is McGregor's going to come back to fight Gaethje.
I think it's so stupid. It doesn't even make sense to me at all.
To me, it makes perfect sense because the easiest fight in that division for Conor McGregor is Justin Gaethje.
I get that. I just don't think there's any... Gaethje doesn't have enough steam yet.
But that's because Gaethje's going to probably beat Alvarez, and if Gaethje gets Alvarez, he gets Conor. That's what I feel like the conspiracy I'm throwing out there, too.
I don't think Conor can keep the non-Irish MMA fan base unless he fights Tony. And I think Conor knows that.
Right.
I think he knows he has to defend real one time, and if Tony doesn't get that shot, there's no way Gaethje should jump over Poirier. There's no way Gaethje should jump over Barbosa. There's no way Gaethje should jump over Ferguson. There's no way, if you want to throw Khabib in there, I don't think he should jump over Khabib.
That's why I'm saying
Michael Johnson. That's the only fight he fought.
What Gaethje has is a belt from an organization that was somewhat, it's C category, but either way is recognized in the PFL now. But
is it bigger than the UFC interim belt? Not at all.
He made way more money, where he actually, for his contract, he does get to show those pay stubs, Gaethje does, and say, no, this is what I'm worth. And he does have a big following. Like, he has hundreds of thousands of Twitter following, and he's been marketed really well. But it'll be unification belts as well, because Gaethje hasn't lost and he left with a belt. So it's the same as David Branch. Why David Branch all of a sudden was just in an interim fight as well, because of that belt. And
I don't think that's a great fight for Conor.
I think that's one of his easiest fights.
I think the stand-up style is interesting, but the way Gaethje doesn't go down and he keeps coming forward and he's mad hungry.
But Conor hits harder than most. So that time that most
now
people can't
I wonder
get him,
that after watching him box, I wonder, does he hit harder than most? Because who have we seen him punch out? 145-pound guys and Eddie Alvarez.
But he's knocked down multiple people. He's knocked down even Max, and the decisions he has had. He hurts people with that left. It's fast. It's definitely, and Gaethje tends to take a shot. Planning on it.
Tons.
So it's a wild fight. That's my conspiracy. That's mine.
The other one I heard, which I think is interesting, and I think it was Chael's, is he believes the UFC has all intentions of just doing the Diaz-McGregor 3. And the reason he thinks this is because, one, Dana adamantly denied it. Two, he thinks Dana said, instead of saying Conor fights Tony next, that's the fight, he said Conor's not fighting Nate. There's been no talks of Nate. He will be fighting Tony. Why would you even bring Nate's name up? Why would you put it in the mix? Because you're testing right now Nate versus Tony to get the vibe, the feel from what's going to sell. Yeah. And this is the other thing with and the reality of it. Conor could fight a fucking mop at this point, and people are going to tune in.
Yeah,
they don't have to put anybody against him.
I got Conor in the first.
They don't even have to. They don't have to put any name. So that's
why Gaethje as well, to an extent. I feel like Gaethje does have.
But to me, under that criteria, why wouldn't you just put him in against the least? Like a person, just the common UFC fan or the person that's going to tune in, there's not enough, even with Khabib, I would feel like Gaethje even though in a different circuit or whatever, has more criteria to be ranked above Khabib.
Mm-hmm.
But Khabib, as far as the common fans concerned, has that 22-0 records still, where it's like, this guy's 22-0, which is everything.
Right.
It's everything.
Right.
So but I am anti the Khabib fight altogether, and people still talk about that in Russia.
All day, every day.
And fucking, we're still talking about Conor right now.
Exactly. That's the power.
And I don't really care. Everything I see about him, I'm Conor burnt out in a way that I was Britney Spears burnt out when I was young. Like, I am burnt out of seeing him everywhere. He has a movie coming out. And then the most burnt out that I want to put a gun in my mouth. And sorry for anyone out there who's lost anyone from putting a gun in their mouth. And nonetheless, if I hear, I don't even want to say his name, that corny boxer with no chin who looks like a little Guido and has a fake tan, I know his name. I just don't even want to say it anymore.
Don't want to give him that publicity.
Ugh. If I even hear anyone talk about it, and some of my favorite Bloody Elbow and MMA Digest and all these other keep promoting the idea of this, and that he reached out to Dana to ask for the fight.
Oh my gosh.
Shut up.
Nobody wants to see
that. Was one of the great things is I watched some guy piece Paulie apart in a boxing match over, like it was some old thing, but I just never really watched him fight that much. He was one of the guys I just never cared about. I
agree with that. I've seen his fights, and
nothing
ever reminded me of.
You're right, though, about JC Julio Cesar. I watched a lot of
how amazing he is.
Shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man.
Literally unreal the way that guy moves and puts people in corners and then destroys the body. There was a few fights that were controversial in his career as well. I'm not just going to say that he was immaculate, because there were split decisions that could have went the other way in his career, and then he had a couple cans in there, but I don't remember because
that's every single boxer.
Yeah, that's what I'm through. Like, sometimes people fall out and they get just a can to go in there in 2 days' notice, and you get a highlight reel on that.
I really enjoyed though watching the boxing with my new MMA head. I felt like there was so much more about the sport of boxing than just throwing punches.
They're so aren't the lines so straight?
I watched this one reel of best knockouts to like dudes who kind of deserved it. And they were like people talking like shit or dancing.
People that are taunting. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. But the amount of elbows that are thrown
in boxing matches all the time.
The amount of stuff I saw that wasn't punching was insane.
Yeah,
the judges don't. The clinch arms. You see a little jiu-jitsu.
When they drag.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting.
You can't,
weight transfer.
Yep. When people trip each other and they're like, that's a slip, and you can see that the other boxer puts his foot behind the other
him before they punch, or the punch push that actually are pushes.
One of my favorite sneaky things that I always saw that some people get away with, some people don't, is Lennox Lewis always had it where he would throw the jab, and he would even allow it to be slow, and then he'd cup it behind and then throw the right behind it, and you can't cup ahead and punch in boxing, but he did it so smoothly, like he would move it right down to the shoulder, but it's an illegal punch because you refrain. It's like hitting your head on the back of a wall. It's totally not allowed in boxing, but when certain fighters get to higher caliber stuff, Mayweather trips a lot of people up and does sneaky stuff in fights a lot of the time that a lot of other fighters wouldn't get away with turning in elbows. He'll turn elbows in really hard. It's
a crazy thing with him watching some of his fights in more detail and even slow motion. He is
great eyes. You can see the whole ring.
It's not his boxing at all that the reason he is the best ever. At all, it's not his boxing. He's elusive, but it's everything else he does that's not throwing punches, like the dirty elbows, like getting in the corner, and he does nasty shit like wrestling moves. How you always say people get their head up against their face. He does that shit all the time.
He puts the head in the chin, his forehead into their chin, and it wears you out as well. And it hurts, especially with that type of hair.
And they probably shave it 3 days before to let it grow out to that painful.
I've wrestled guys like that, and it is not fun that have really thick hair. I remember I'd get a rash on my face. In wrestling, you can also have a beard, and other than religious reasons, collegiate wrestling. But they would, if you didn't shave, the refs would be like, go shave. because it'd be a weapon out there. I mean, you get sandpaper in your armpit, pulled as hard as you can, or on your nipple. It rips your nipple off. You're wearing a singlet.
Gosh,
You're wearing
awful.
a singlet. You know what those are? That's skin deep. You can see.
That's awful. That seems like the worst, the chafed nipples.
Yeah. So, any other MMA verse we want to get into? Any other shout-outs we want to throw out there before we get into
They keep talking about CM Punk fighting again.
Oh,
who's he fight?
Anybody, because I want to make money against... I'm just going to put all my money against CM Punk if it's any type of credible fighter. The only fight I liked was Mickey Gall's first fight, which was that guy who was like 8-10 in kickboxing or whatever. That was the camera guy for UFC, Trevor Smith or Tony Smith or something like that. He's never fought since Mickey Gall, but he was a total can. He called out CM Punk, and I'm like, that's the perfect, because those both guys are one has professional experience that was very lacking, and CM Punk doesn't. So I would like that. I think that would be a fun fight, whoever that guy is. Who would you want to see CM Punk fight?
I don't even think honestly, if it was possible, and it would be the most interesting match I can think of, if there's some way possible, and we live in totally the wrong time, world, and everything, if CM Punk could fight Chris Cyborg, I would be so interested in that fight. Even though he outweighs her and everything.
He would get slaughtered. He would get murdered. I guarantee it. I would have so much money on Cyborg.
I bet she'd finish the exact same way as Mickey Gall finished, though. I think she'd probably take his back.
What would be amazing is if she came at her berserker Wanderlei Silva style and just unleashed punches and kicks. That would be rad. CM Punk ain't hurt nobody with those punches. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
And then the other great news for Team Bullet, she sent out a tweet yesterday of her hitting a bag and kicking a bag and whatnot and getting ready, ... 125. Woo! So I'm like, who else beats Valentina? Who else beats Valentina at 125?
At 125, that's where you can get in that super fight JJ talk. And MMA.
This is the only thing now I'm worried about for JJ, watching her in her last interview. She was talking in the press conference what's to stop her from wanting to beat DJ now? Like, yeah, she beats Ronda. This next fight, she beats Ronda's record.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's to stop her from, is she going to be a new Demetrius Johnson? Then Demetrius Johnson in his next interview said, I'm not going to stop right here. I have to set a good record because Joanna's right on my tail.
He understands the game.
So now, oh, great. We got to watch 3 more boring Demetrius Johnson fights so he can keep his record.
These are all possibilities. The only thing that's a bit different in the DJ than Joanna is there is an Andrade around the corner for Joanna, who all of a sudden looked like she understands what it takes to go championship level after she went 5 with JJ. So I want to see that rematch after what she just did to Gedalia. But there's even the women's sport is moving so quickly. They're the influx of women that are going to be able to come up with raw talent that are going to be, I think Joanna, with the guys division, we know the steady stream of guys that are going to come out. You know the shitty next
fight we're going to see, and it sucks for Cavillo. Her star's rising so quick, and her division is the second hardest division in all of UFC.
She's going to get eaten alive if they throw her in there.
I feel
they've done it to JJ or DJ multiple times with Horiguchi and a lot of
Gedalia or Cavillo or Gedalia or Andrade are Cavillo's next fight, and they usually don't throw the winner loser. But the way that division's stacked up, it's weird how they rank them. I just think it's an odd, but it's the second hardest division behind the men's 155.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. That 55 division is
unreal.
Tons of contenders.
Scariest.
So, any last little bits scraping by?
I don't know if there's anything else. I guess we can get into the fight talk.
Breakdown.
Fight talk. What fight are we breaking down?
We are breaking down UFC Fight Night 118. Going to be aired on Fight Pass and FS1. And it's coming out of Gdansk, Poland. So, I don't understand how we ain't got no Polish peeps listening to LaTB, you better be listening this round because you're going to get some bet advice that's going to.
Do you think they're setting up, is this the first time they're in Poland and making sure the TV streams run good, making sure everything's fine, making sure there's accommodations, making sure they like the arena, so then they can bring their JJ over and fill the state. We know they have Poland against the world.
They're testing the market right now. They're seeing if they can fill out an arena. What's it really like out there? They really don't know. I do believe it is their first show, and I don't know if it's sold out show yet. I haven't heard anything like that, so that I'm saying that it's not sold out.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's a good thing. We want one Polish, even if it's just one Polish listener this week.
All I need is one.
All I need
Get
is
to it,
one.
World. So, with this fight day, this is going to end up being starting at 12 p.m. Eastern. It's a day card here on the East Coast. On the West Coast, it's going to be a morning card. And in Poland, we need to find out whether this is going to be at 9 a.m. like it was in Japan the other few weeks ago.
Or like midnight, something crazy.
Exactly, where they're fighting at 4 in the morning.
It might be like that because I think in London they fight at a weird time.
Yeah, like 3 and 4 in the morning so that they can show it live here and have it be a good enough
having a little sip of America since we're about to talk about Cowboy Cerrone. Just had to open a good can of America.
All over the globe. UFC's definitely making a showing, but moving on to the first fight of the night. We're starting off with the ladies. We have Lina Landsberg versus Aspen Ladd. Both of these women have fought in the UFC before. Landsberg coming with a 7-2 record against Ladd's 5-0. Ladd is actually debuting in the UFC. I'm remembering her from an Invicta fights, and I do believe Ladd has had a fight fall out within like a day's notice. I feel like we've broken her down, and then something happened where the other fighter didn't show. So Landberg's also 35 years old to the 22 for Ladd. Ladd coming out of California, and Landberg coming out of Sweden, so the local easy trip's going to be for Landsberg. Landsberg being 5'7" to the 5'6" of Ladd. Landsberg's lost to Justino, to Christiana Cyborg in her debut in the UFC. That's how she got her call. Then, as of 6 months ago, over Pudilivia. That's a hard-ass name. Pudilova. 6 months ago, she got a decision. Landsberg, at 35, we know what we're getting with her. She has a good pace, good striking, down the pipe, not too much power, but here at the 135 division for the ladies, unless you are people like Christiana Cyborg and or Amanda Nunes, you're the punch and power. It's tough to get there. Ladd is also a stand-up striking fighter. The ground game, Ladd's much more scrappy, and coming out of that California scene, I think her ground game for Ladd is where it's going to be a little bit sneaky in this fight, and that's where I have to worry about this Landsberg on the ground is we don't know how good Ladd's ground game is. She's shown it off in other Invicta regional scenes, but Landsberg's definitely a big step up in competition. I'm liking Landsberg for the sprawl and brawl. I think she can keep it up for 3 rounds. I think it's going to go decision, but I am saying be hesitant on that Ladd, and this is a good DraftKings stay away. Here at LaTB, we always tend to stay away from the first fight of the night, and this would be why. This could be a sketchy split. What are you feeling about this one?
I wish the numbers were out on DraftKings so we could really talk about it, because I'm so surprised that on Tapology, so if you guys want to follow along with us, you can go to tapology.com. When we get on YouTube, we will probably have a screen behind us that has this on there, so you will just be able to follow all at once. That being said, why is Ladd such a heavy favorite on this? Because she has an undefeated record. Look at every single person she's knocked out. It was their very first fight or second fight they ever fought. So now all of a sudden she's going against Lina. Guess what? Lina's never been knocked out except for a ground and pound finish against Cyborg.
A dude. Not a dude. Not a dude, sorry. But pretty much a dude.
We were just talking about how she could beat up CM Punk.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and she didn't knock out Lina Landsberg. So now do I think Lad has the same experience that Christina does to get on top of Lena Landsberg and lay on her and knock her out. I don't think that at all. So I'm going to go with Lena Landsberg here. I think it's going to be a decisive decision. There's nothing that Lad's going to have coming into this that Lena hasn't trained for already to be in the UFC.
So on DK, what are you thinking this is going with?
If Lena Landsberg is the underdog on this, I think you could speckle her on a few, even though I tend to stay away from the first fight of the night because Lad could be hot fire and all of a sudden we're watching another Cavillo climb up the UFC. And California, sometimes, if it's going to come from somewhere, it's going to be California, especially for the women.
Yep.
So I'll probably stay away from it. I might put it on 1 or 2. I might put Lena Landsberg. So I have Lena Landsberg decision.
So, moving on to the next fight, we're moving to the bantamweight division, 135 pounds, with Felipe Arantes versus Josh Emmett. This Felipe Arantes is a Brazilian fighter fighting out of New Jersey, being 29 years old, to the 32-year-old Sacramento team alpha male Emmett. The height advantage is going to be neutral, but the reach advantage goes 3 inches to Arantes. Both of these fighters have fought previously in the UFC. Arantes holding an 18-8 record in 1, and Josh Emmett having an 11-1 record coming freshly off of his first loss, a split decision versus Des Green. We know what we're getting with Emmett. Alpha male wrestling, overhand right, great cardio, good submissions, great guillotine, sneaky jab. I really like Josh Emmett's jab, but he tends to work people over with wrestling and pitter-patter. Not really that finish ability for Josh Emmett, but he can sneakily score some points because he does like to throw some takedowns in there on DK. So Emmett, depending on the DK lines, could be a little sneaky play on there because he does have higher than average points. He goes to a lot of decisions in his fights as well. Arantes having a few fights in the UFC now, over 6 or 7, beating the people like Maximo Blanco, losing to Andre Fili 2 years ago, beating Yves Joabuin, and as of late, coming off of a split decision loss to Eric Perez. I feel like that split decision could have went Arantes' way. I don't know if Perez really won that, and I think it was in Mexico, so that was at altitude as well. I don't know if that's going to affect Poland. Some of these fighters, one of the things we have to take into consideration is where is this location? What is their altitude and what's their climate? Is it going to be freezing weather, or are they living the life in the sun right now of the Poland ways? So, if you heard it earlier, I'm liking the wrestling on Emmett, but Arantes is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who likes to strike, has good Muay Thai, good power. I think his gas tank is where he's been exploited multiple times. He does tend to gas pretty quick. He's muscle bound. With the travel, I'm just going decision Emmett for all of the reasons I said before. What do you think is going to go on with this one?
I believe this will probably be a pretty boring fight. There might be points to be made in the reversals. Because of something you taught me is why I have Emmett decision on this. The biggest tool I believe Arantes brings to the table is his jiu-jitsu. And what puts out the fire of jiu-jitsu better than anything?
American wrestling.
Good old-fashioned American wrestling.
Ever die.
And so I feel like Emmett has that in spades. My hopes is that Cody Garbrandt and everything going on with him and is hopefully pushing alpha male a little bit as an entire gym. Maybe we're going to see an evolution of them. We know exactly what we're getting with Emmett. The problem is even if you know what you're getting with American wrestling, all it tends to do is make for a boring looking fight, even if all the transitions and everything are there. I got an Emmett decision. I think the way DraftKings is going to roll out him, though, because he tends to be a heavy favorite on DraftKings. He usually is hella expensive. I don't think his points are going to be worth it. So I will put him on as a winner on a few cards if he's cheap enough, but I just think DraftKings is going to overprice him. So I probably will just have him speckled, but not. I think he's a pretty secure guy to put on your cards any way you cut it, though.
I would agree with that. I'm just interested on the DraftKings lines whether Emmett's going to be a heavy favorite or not. So, moving on to the next fight, we have about... We're having technical difficulties.
You're having technical... Well, perfect. While you're having technical difficulties, I figured I would read something about Poland.
How would you pronounce that name, the first? It's Gdansk.
No, I actually have it right up on the Wikipedia right now. So,
Gdansk, Poland.
Okay. Gdansk.
Damn, I wish I would have known that, because it would have been the dangstest show in the town. I think you
could even say Danzig.
Oh.
That would be how you say it, like the band, Danzig.
Yeah.
I think Danzig.
Oh,
Danzig,
I like
Poland.
I like Dangst.
So Danzig, actually Danzig in quotes. So I think
oh, it's Danzig.
Danzig, Poland. So Danzig, Poland, a Polish city on the Baltic coast, and is the capital of the Pomeranian voivodeship. Sorry if I'm murdering that. Poland's principal seaport, and is also the center of the country's 4th largest metropolitan area.
So we at sea, homie. We are at sea level.
City rights, yeah, city, metro area, postal code, area code. We'll send a shout out to the 4858.
That's also my seal.
Danzig. What up, Danzig? Hashtag Danzig. We'll start the UFC, hashtag UFC Danzig.
Oh, damn.
That's us one step up.
That's
one step up. Everyone else is going to be looking at, UFC Poland. They're going to be going with the bland.
Yep.
We might do the UFC Poland so we can find the group, but we'll also hashtag it UFC Danzig.
The only Danzig fight or song that I can think of is Mother, and it's because Gabriel Gonzaga used to walk out to it. Mothers. Tell your children not to go my way.
That was some harmony right there. I think that was some pretty good UFC, a little UFC tidbit trivia.
Oh, the Gabriel Gonzaga's come out to that?
That's the next level stuff.
That's back in the day. That was when he was fighting Randy
Brennan
Couture.
Schaub.
Yeah, That's like pre-Brennan Schaub. That's pre-Brennan Schaub. That's back. Let's show my age in MMA. So, moving on to the next fight, we got a little touchy-feely with Artem Lobov here. This is a hell of a fight. Andre Feely coming in at 145 against Artem Lobov.
Warley Alves versus Salim Tahari.
Oh, mine's not showing it. That's where these technical difficulties are getting to me,
Maybe it's
guys.
a new card that was...
No, I'm telling you, I thought I had seen that from earlier today to now when we're running the podcast. There was a fight put on. So that's like 4 days notice, 5 days notice. Warley Alves was just hanging out and was like, yeah, sure, I'll take that fight.
And Warley Alves, that's a huge name to have on a card. I'd be excited about that addition.
Yeah, that's... Both fighters are potentially...
Salim Tahari.
It's not coming up on my...
Okay, I'm going to try my breakdown.
Yeah, your initial breakdown. I do know both of these fighters, and I was able to actually... look up Salim and his fight style. I just couldn't tell you off the top of my head his exact stats right now, but they're going to be lacking in the tap world right now. But Warley Alves being the UFC at 170, being a UFC Brazil fighter alum, he's definitely won the show and has actually been a little lackluster in his, as of late, gas tank being the main reason of that. But Warley Alves...
10 months ago, he lost to Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, but rightfully so. We saw that happen.
I mean, who loses to Usman right now is the real question. And a year and 5 months before that, he lost to Brian Barberena. And his last win was a year and 10 months before that against Colby Covington submission guillotine choke.
So what's the height on him real quick?
He is 5'11" with a reach of 6'2", or 7'2" inches, sorry. And Tahari, or we're going to call him, his nickname's the Grizzly.
The Grizz.
He's from Poland, and his height is 5'10", and his reach is unknown.
And his reach is unknown because, again, this is 4 days notice fight. So both of these fighters are going to be affected somewhat from it. Alves being the 10-2 fighter, only coming off of those last 2 losses in a row in his career. I wonder what his mental state's going to be from. Wonder what his travel's going to be from. Was he coaching another fighter like a Felipe Arantes? and they're like, hey, you want to fight? Okay.
Or is he a Brazilian fighter and we're seeing the effects of USADA?
Well, the lack of USADA, which we do. It's only a matter of time till here at LaTB we talk about where are you at, what are the legal ramifications of you having certain substances in said countries and or traveling with them. And guess what, Poland? You don't give a Poland, they don't give a damn. They're like, juice? We got juice. Get in here.
Come on, it's cold
fight.
outside.
Yeah.
He tells them apple cider.
Yeah. There's nothing in it.
Have yourself some steroids and some apple cider.
So, Warley Alves coming.
And they talk in Southern accent.
As everyone knew, obviously. With Grizz.
That's what I would ask Joanna if we ever interviewed her. I'd ask her, do your best Southern accent.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Don't you think that'd be awesome to make fighters that spoke English do your best New Yorker?
Yeah,
to a Brazil.
Yeah,
I think it would be
American.
so funny to hear what they think or do your best Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
To another fighter. I think that would be a funny thing. Anyway.
So, with Grizzly being 10-1 out of the Polish scene, being 28 years old to the 26-year-old Alves. Alves has a much deeper fight history, as in where he was fighting out of in Brazil. The competition has always been higher. Poland's just been newer to the scene. They did have a really good traditional kickboxing and Muay Thai scene, so tough people coming out of Poland. That's why we give him such high regards. This is a tough guy, but I think there's too high of a step up in rank coming against a guy like Alves. I think they're putting a local fighter that if he gets the win, the crowd's going to go nuts, but more than likely they're helping Alves get out of a rut on short notice so that he gets back on a winning record. Being that 10-2, that's still really a good line for him. That's a really good point that people like to say on, like, oh, he's 10-3, like it just looks good on paper. But all the way around, I did happen to watch Grizz's fights, and his striking, it just looks like to me his striking is not that advanced. It tends to, is the most advanced thing about him. It's his striking into ground and or wrestling. Not really there. And Alves on the ground is a demon. He will snatch up a limb and break it on top of his striking. Has gotten him in trouble because he feels like once he knocks someone out, he wanted to do it from that on out. But Alves on the ground will submit almost anybody. Grizzly, I think it's going to be a sloppy takedown from Alves. Get Grizzly on the ground, and it's going to be night-night. If Grizzly can manage to get this into the second round, he has a chance, but I don't see that happening. I'm going to have Alves submission because I think he tries to take his career in a different direction immediately and get away from the striking. Round 1, Alves. If not, that's a scary play. I'm not going to play Alves on too many DK. He's going to probably be pretty high up there for points because that gas tank always scares me, especially on short notice. What do you think is going to go on with this short notice
He is such
fight?
a heavy favorite right now, obviously so, and I think he will be everywhere. I could even see him being the most expensive guy of the night. Yep. My question with Alves, if he was older, I would believe he would be in the mindset to take his career in another direction. I think he's too young, and he still think he's going to lay hands, and I think if he stands with this guy for even a minute and a half, he's going to get knocked out. I think the Grizzly wins the standing game all day. I see it almost like a Muay Thai fighter versus a jiu-jitsu artist.
Yeah.
And so my only question to you was, how good is the Grizzlies' ground game? That's it. Does he have the wrestling criteria? Does he have any takedown defense? Does he have any
All
of these stuff to keep?
I only got to watch a couple because it was such short notice.
So
but
I believe Alves for every reason you said, and I think round 1 all day, if Alves goes in and fights the Damian Maia type Brazilian fight he should be fighting.
Right.
I don't think he's going to do that for some reason. I think his ego gets ahead of him.
Which has happened before.
As far as the UFC is concerned, the last 2 fights that he's had at the time, the guys he fought were, to him, considered unknowns compared to guys he had fought before. So it's almost like his ego's been trounced twice, that he has something to prove going out there this time. That is such a dangerous headspace to be in. I feel like you could put the Grizzly on a card and it could be your biggest upset of the night.
That's if that comes through. You don't put it on everything, but you put it on some. You
like one or two cards. One or two cards.
That's where you get top 5 places.
I think one or two cards, and I think you stay. Even though we're saying first round finish, my brain is telling me first round finish. I'm not going to put Alvarez anywhere.
I agree.
I'm going to put them probably both on the same amount of 1 or 2 cards.
A great point. I think that's really, really valid because for the price that Grizzly's going to be, it might be our wager gauger play of the night.
Might be a wager.
Might be. That's in contention. We'll see there because
now we can move on to the Lobov Feely.
Touchy feely kind of game here versus Artem Lobov, counter sidekick, the evil sidekick to the arch nemesis of the UFC.
Are we gonna see Conor in the auditorium?
No. He's making too much money to hang out with Artem Lobov.
I bet he is in the auditorium. It's close enough. It's in Poland.
They're about to. Oh, speaking of which, isn't Scotland gonna get or Ireland gonna get a hurricane for the first time ever? Like they're all boarding up.
Either they're getting it right now, or they're about to get it. Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Good luck, Ireland. Yep. Yeah, it's the first the storms
in
they
60
had
years,
1966 or something like that. Yeah, something crazy.
So you're gonna know what it feels like to be in Florida.
It's a Cat 1 in Ireland.
Cat 1,
what's going on in the world?
Hello, baby, Cat 1.
Yeah, what's going on in the world though? Think about it. Isn't that weird? A hurricane in Ireland.
I'm just like I wouldn't even have to shutter my windows for a Cat 1.
I know. That is true. That is so true. But they probably don't have building codes.
Flipping shit. Yeah, they're flipping shit
they have
over there.
Bricks.
Poor people,
4 bricks on top, your house gets wet and it just falls over.
Like here in Florida where people were putting water bags in front of their doors. Did you see that trend try to catch along this year?
Yeah.
Did you think that would be if something pops it?
It might keep, if you directionally do it.
Can hold them in place kind of,
But once it after it's gonna start coming, I don't know.
Yeah, it's water bags, like.
I mean, those water bags. I've seen people do the big, huge ones, and they make an island of their lawn. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that's cool. But no, I'm talking like a trash bag that they fill up with water and tied outside their front doors.
No.
Yeah, it's exactly.
I thought you meant an actual sandbag in your front door.
No. Not a sandbag.
No. They try to create their own
their own
water
sandbag.
thing.
Exactly.
No.
And they're like, oh, hurricane hack. Yeah, right. Your door's going to fly right open.
Or yeah, right, until something goes through that bag and it floods your doorway. It's not even the rain and wind. Ireland, don't use the trash bag trick.
So, Artem Lobov coming off of a loss as well as Touchy Feely. Touchy Feely's win 1, lose 1 as of being a 16-5 fighter, being 27 years old against 31-year-old Artem Lobov, also coming off of a loss to Cub Swanson where he was manhandled. I can't believe I picked Artem Lobov in that. I should be ashamed of myself. I just don't even know. Artem Lobov is a 14-13 fighter. There's a lot of people that have really given him a lot of hate because of that record, because there's multiple other people out of the UFC with the same record that supposedly have as much talent, but you can't promote a 14-14 fighter, especially when they have decisions nonstop. So we know what we're getting with Artem Lobov. Striker, ground and pound. His cardio has actually came together as of late much, much better. That Cub Swanson fight, even though he took a thrashing, he showed that he was in it for all 5 rounds, and I think that that's something that he did learn in it. Andre Feely, being that win 1, lose 1, he's in a weird state. He knows how to come back from losing a fight, and in this 145 division, people fall off for any reason, but I don't feel like Andre Feely has to worry about that so much. With his striking style tends to be so flashy that he can knock people out. The thing with Feely is, though, that he does get tired, he does get gassed, and he can get pushed around. Artem Lobov tries to set a pace, but can get outworked. I don't necessarily think Feely is going to outwork him in that sense. The wrestling isn't going to come into play because I feel both of them have good enough to take down the fence. On the ground, I'm going to give it a Feely by a hair. But I think the creative striking in this fight is going to be really, really fun. I love Artem Lobov's hammer fists and leg attack, early leg attack. If anything, I feel like Feely going to Artem's legs early will really help him gain this fight. I'm going to go Feely decision, but I'm going to stay away from this. I think they're going to pitter-patter each other. They're going to go, I punch you once, you punch me once. For all 3 rounds, some ground and pound, but I don't see a finish coming either way. Feely decision. What do you think happens in this fight?
By the pattern of their records, you should be right. Feely should win the decision on this fight because he win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Artem Lobov is overranked and by all intents and purposes probably shouldn't be in the UFC. The last guy he beat is Ishihara, which I love Ishihara, but it's questionable of whether he should be in the UFC.
Great points.
Feely's better than Ishihara. They're from the same camp. I would like to think that Artem thinks he figured out the camp. I don't think that's true. I think Feely needs this fight. I think he's young enough, and I think there's been enough exciting stuff to happen in his weight division of recent to make him inspired. This is my fight to let me know if Touchy Feely is going to be one of my favorite guys going forward. This will just how he plays this fight altogether. He's always been one of my favorite guys when I first started. And I think it was just the name purely. But I think that Cody Garbrandt makes him a better fighter. I probably believe he's training with Cody Garbrandt day in and day out. Artem, I think Conor will probably be there for him. Artem seems like a guy that you would probably like to have a Guinness with. Like he seems like he might be fun to hang out with. I'm just not that excited by Artem Lobov. I'm more surprised when he wins than anything. So I will be surprised if he wins in this fight. And I, too, have Feely decision. I probably won't put him everywhere. This will be one where I think the winner or the loser, you'll be like, well, shit, I could have gone with either guy and ended up with 30
the same
or 40
amount of points.
points.
I agree with that. I see that 100%. So, yeah, definitely this is just one to watch and stay away. There's going to be other options potentially in the night to make some of those better plays. But moving on to the next fight, we're going into the middleweight division at 185 pounds, and we have a debut with Razam Envy versus Sam Alvey, and this is a short notice fight. Alvey's last fight falling off, and Alvey wanted to stay on the card. They found him a debuting 30-year-old fighter with a 15-3 record fighting out of Azerbaijan, Russia. So I did happen to watch a couple of MV.
But I don't think Azerbaijan's in Russia. I feel like the gym might be in the Middle East somewhere, but he's from Russia.
Okay.
Because I see another city, Makhachkala, Russia.
I see that. Yeah. You guys are stretching it, Poland. Come on. You guys are getting it.
But I thought the Azerbaijan was a pretty good one to say.
Ooh,
and the only reason I think it's Middle East is because I feel like I heard it on Homeland.
I feel like I watch it on the news somewhere. I don't know what I'm saying. I just read letters.
I know. We're going to get shit from people that are like, I'm from Azerbaijan.
Yeah. You said it all wrong.
They're going to be like, hey, I'm from Azerbaijan. Because everyone talks Southern.
From the South. So, with Envy being the short notice fighter, he's fighting out of M1, which tends to be kickboxing with no ground game. They tend to break along the ring. He's fought in mainly the ring, and it has been 3 5-minute rounds. When they go to the ground, they only have a limited amount of time to have any kind of strikes. So that just changes a complete game. I feel like Envy is coming in on a learning curve because the UFC, the cage, the pace is so different, and those clinch battles tend to wear you out a bit more than previously. And I really didn't like Envy's gas tank in any of the fights that I saw. After the first round, he definitely really lacks, like an Ishihara, as you were saying before. He throws semi-wild in that sense. He throws very looping. If you think Ishihara's striking, that's what I see. He doesn't have that crisp striking Envy. He has the very Russian style of looping punches and comes in and beats you with sure will and tenacity. And
what's the thing you probably say second most? Straight punches beat looping punches.
Every time.
Who has straight punches?
So, with Sam Alvey, we know what we're getting. We have a 30-9 veteran in combat sports. Love Sam Alvey all the way around. Smiling Sam always brings a smile into my face, coming out of Wisconsin with a wife who's in his corner that is one America's top model, and he just has a family unit that's behind him all the way around. He likes to fight as much as he can within a year, and he's coming off of a win against Rashad Evans, split decision, cash and money, called that fight 4 weeks, and then previous to that, losing a decision to Talis Latis, but having winning streaks against people like Marquardt, Alex Nicholson, Kevin Casey, people that are still up on their way, and Alvey isn't going to make a title shot anytime soon. I dare I say he may be a bit of a stepping stone. If people can make it past Sam Alvey, they start to get into contention talk, and Sam Alvey I don't think is going to be moving that much further up. I've been looking to fade Sam Alvey just because of the amount of fights he's had. He has slowed down to me, and with that Talis Latis fight, one kick and the fight was shot. He was done for the entire fight because even his corner was saying, "You got 2 more rounds."
I thought that too until I watched Latis fight his last fight, and now I'm like, shit, maybe I should be fading Latis.
Which is also a good move, but I've been fading Rashad Evans for every fight too, so that's why I also picked Sam Alvey. So even though the younger 30 years old by 1 year, I don't think the miles are there for the Russian. And I think the gas tank for leaps and bounds is there for Alvey. Alvey knows how to perform in the bright lights. I think the Russian is going to be... Envy is going to be surprised by it all. I think he gasses. And Sam Alvey hits harder than most people think, especially in the clinch. And like I was saying before, all of his fights previously, after 10 seconds of being on the ring, they break it. And he would be gassed and break. And look for Sam Alvey to, as soon as they half break in the close... in the phone booth, Sam Alvey's going to throw one of those uppercuts, and Sam Alvey will hold the head. Like I was telling you,
yes.
Sam Alvey holds the head. It's legal in MMA.
Yeah.
And you can do it with knees, but he'll do it. He'll hold with the left hand and throw an uppercut, and he hurts people. I'm liking Sam Alvey more and more in I had Envy earlier this week. Now I have Sam Alvey. Now I got Alvey by TKO round 3 because I think Alvey knows how to beat people in the later rounds. I don't think I think the experience is going to get to this debut fighter. Sam Alvey, TKO round 3. I didn't believe I would ever say that again in my life, but here we are. How do you feel this one goes down?
Something that's happening to the 185 division, and I think we're seeing it. And I think the 170 division as well, and maybe, I don't know about the heavier guys, but I'll say for the 185 and the 170 is people are taking the traumatic brain injury into, if they're good corners and good coaches. And one thing that we say over and over again about Alvey is he has a great corner. So he doesn't tend to put himself in so much danger in fights, and that's why we're seeing so many decisions come from him of late. That being said, I think once, round 1's over, his wife is going to know he's not in trouble anymore. And she's going to say, okay, honey, cut it out, cut it loose. Whatever she tells him, you can punch away. I think she tells him to hold back, and he listens to her while he's in the octagon. And I think she doesn't allow him to get in harm's way anymore. And that's why she hasn't told him, okay, honey, just cut it loose.
Free the beast.
Yeah. So I think we're going to see her tell him that this fight. And I think it's going to be in round 2. And so I have Sam Alvey, KO round 2. If this fight is as close as it looks on Tapology, on DraftKings, put Sam Alvey everywhere.
If this is close, I see the finish coming to Alvey. I did see that Envy did have a few finishes, but the finishes that he had in the knockouts, the people were swinging as wildly as he were. They were throwing from the hip. It's a different game. It's a different game when you get in with straight punchers. Sam Alvey's a straight puncher. He hurts people with a
good takedown defense.
Uppercut. Yeah, but this dude ain't taking him down. There's not going to be a ground game involved. Sam Alvey doesn't like to go to the ground. He can hold his own there, but there's nothing in a fight that showed me this guy wanted to go to the ground. So this is going to favor Sam Alvey in his best attributes with the experience. Yeah, I'm not going to put Alvey everywhere because I still am looking for a place to fade him. So the weirder things have happened, but I think Alvey is going to be a good play here. Moving on to the next fight.
Everywhere. That's what I say. Put him everywhere.
Everywhere. Brian Kelleher at bantamweight versus Damon Stayak. And we know Kelleher's coming out of New York. being 17-5 of a fighter versus Stayak's 10-4, also coming off of a loss to Pedro Munoz, sneaky good guy. Stayak coming out of Poland, being 27 years old, to the 31 Kelleher. Also, the height advantage goes to Stayak at 5'8" to the 5'6" Kelleher. We know what we're getting with Kelleher. Good ground game, not as elite as most people think. Thank you, Chito Vera, for cashing in those big paydays.
That was one of our best Leslie Smith underdog picks.
As Moraga, Vera's right there because Kelleher can get some flash submissions because he is a caliber fighter. He's got a good chin. It gets tested a little more than I would like. But I don't necessarily think that Stayak has that type of power. He's more of a submission fighter. He does tend to get those submissions with when he was getting them more was in the more regional scenes. He had his first fight in the UFC now 4 fights ago against Yatsin Meza, and he lost a decision, and Yatsin Meza is no longer in the UFC. Then he had a win over Filip Peljic, who's no longer in, and Davy Grant, submission armbar 11 months ago, who I believe David Grant also lost a contract. So Stayak is barely holding on. Munoz is really a caliber fighter, and I think Munoz should have been able to finish that fight. The ground game is what we got to worry about here. Is Kelleher better than Stayak? And I do think that American Jiu-Jitsu, now that Stayak had realized, or Kelleher realized that he's not as good on the ground, that he has to mix the MMA thing, because that's what happened with Vera, and we said Vera's sneakier than you fucking think. I don't think that Stayak is that level of sneaky on the ground, and Kelleher is going to be able to hold his defense in all those positions. I do think Kelleher gets a decision. I could see Kelleher also getting a submission. This could be a heavy reversal night. I don't think Stayak gets takedowns, though. I think if there's takedowns, it's Kelleher, and it's usually because he'll sprawl and brawl and take the back. Stayak's takedowns are very, very lackluster, very telegraphed against any American who knows takedown defense. Hence Kelleher with a bit of wrestling and all that good stuff. Yeah, I got decision. I could see that submission. I'm going to sprinkle Kelleher all day. I think stay away from Stayak regardless. He's going to be cheaper on there. Depending on Kelleher's price, I could see it going to decision. So I'm not going to put him heavy anything. What are you thinking goes on in this one?
I am, too, going to put Kelleher on a few things. I probably won't put him on as many as you. Open a can of America right here. Another can of America for Cowboy Cerrone. I probably won't put him on as many things. I don't take the loss to Cheeto as big of a deal as some people.
Cheeto's caliber.
Yeah, I think he's an awesome fighter. I think he's still on his way up. Stasiak, what is his nickname? Webster. I don't think he's super great. I don't like that Webster's other submissions were by armbar, and Kelleher has been submitted by armbar before. That makes me a little nervous. Maybe lightning doesn't strike twice. Maybe it does. I kind of have Kelleher, if they're just in a jiu-jitsu match, which is how I picture it looking.
Yep.
I have Kelleher to actually finish in round 3, so I will put him on a few. And it's really just because I have nothing impressive to say about Stasiak, and I usually love Polish fighters, but he's just not one of my favorites. Kelleher either. So this is one that I really look to see. It might be something I watch more to take in for where I rank these guys in the future, because I cannot rely on UFC rankings. It's almost something I want to work on for us is our official rankings. Like, this is how Lesbo and the Bean see the top 15. Because I don't give a shit what the UFC say. And the way they move people up overnight, where you're like, what? The guy fought one fight, now he's the 8th ranked guy in the world? This is crazy. So, I wouldn't mind working on that one day. Kelleher, submission round 3. I'm going to put him on a few. I don't know him well enough to bank on him.
Yeah, he really is unproven, but he had a hard regional scenes. It's to Stasiak's by far a much harder scene prior to getting into the UFC. Moving on to the next fight, we have a debut in the heavyweight division, 265 pounds versus Anthony Hamilton.
Wow.
Jesus. I immediately bet against Anthony Hamilton, I didn't even care what
You didn't even. I didn't even need to look at the other guy.
Warshek. What's his nickname? Seaweed.
Siwy. Siwy.
Siwy being the younger fighter. I don't know by how much. I feel like he's 24. It's not rated here, but he's coming out of Poland, being the local guy at 6'5", being with an 8-1 record against.
He looks like he's 100.
Yeah, bad shot on Tapology for him. Anthony Hamilton being the longtime UFC veteran with coming off of a 3-fight losing streak, only beating Damian Grabowski a year ago, and then losing prior to that to Arabhimov. A month ago, Anthony Hamilton
you just
lost.
Want to put Grabowski on your DraftKings for football, but not on your UFC DraftKings.
So, with Hamilton, no chin. It's what we've said nonstop. He has all the physical attributes, but Spitz just showed us a month ago. You have to land literally one shot with Anthony Hamilton, and the night's over. One shot. It was one shot. I mean, it was seconds. 13-second loss, 14-second loss, something like that. Prior to that, Anthony Hamilton KO to a 205er, if not 185er, 7 months ago. Nagano Kimura, that's surprising as hell. I'm surprised his head didn't fall off prior to that. But 37-year-old Hamilton, coming out of Jackson Winklejohn. The Tapology line is going through the roof. Everybody has this this debut fighter at 8-1. His fight's coming via submission in the local scene out of Poland. I did happen to watch in a few of his fights, and unfortunately, he has garbage for competition. There was a couple people that looked fairly muscular and athletic that have okay names in their regions, but their regions are like North Dakota type regions. Like you're getting North Dakota
like 12
fighters.
People there.
Yeah, well, and it's just for whatever reason it hasn't gone on that much to where they're sending their elite athletes. So was fighting Swivy, was fighting people that were blatantly out of shape, 170 pounders that were fighting at heavyweight because they had bellies, like lapping over them so much that the gas tank finished his submissions. I feel like a lot of his wins came from his sure determination and grit of, you can hit me as hard as you can and I'm going to keep coming. That can be the likes of fighter of Anthony Hamilton. Anthony Hamilton doesn't have much of a gas tank. Can't really speak for much of his striking anymore because that chin gets tested at all. I didn't like any of the striking that I saw from the Polish fighter. If he stays in the heavyweight division, that's, I feel like, somebody who I could potentially fade later, but I feel like he is 24 with the video I was watching of him earlier. His striking is rudimentary. His ground game is his best attribute for Swivy. He likes to use that heavyweight omoplatas rolling on the ground. He's definitely caught people off of his back after he gets hurt with punching because his striking is very non-committal, which is very dangerous for an Anthony Hamilton type person, because if Anthony Hamilton throws one Superman punch, he could also finish this fight. But a lot of people did tend to catch Swivy in him throwing a bullshit kick to the body, and they throw an overhand right, knock him on his ass, and then he'd get an armbar after getting ground and pound a little bit. Again, the competition's so low, it's so hard to tell. Obviously, Anthony Hamilton has had much higher much higher competition, but that chin is so garbage. I think Spence is on the way out, or not necessarily that caliber of a fighter, but at this division you can have 3 and 4 losses even if they're not just because they are flashy. And this is Anthony Hamilton's last fight if he can't win it. But the horrible, I did see that with the 24 fighter as well as with Wizzy, he trips over himself in a lot of fights as well. Like, he just isn't that, he's growing into his body. At 24, he's still got another 10 years at heavyweight. Like, he's just got baby fat on him. I really can't believe I'm doing this. I really, really can't. I can't put him on too many cards, but I got Anthony Hamilton TKO round 1. I see the experience. I see the power being there. The striking isn't there for this guy. Not to say that this guy doesn't just throw an overhand right blindly and it lands. because somebody can fart across the street and Anthony Hamilton's going out. I cannot believe I'm picking Anthony Hamilton. He screwed me more than any other fighter. If you guys are smart, stay away from me on this. I'm picking Anthony Hamilton TKO round 1. I'm not going to put him on too many DK because I can't trust him. If anything, I'm putting Swivy on a couple DK because he always in this division.
If the lines come out anywhere like they look on Tapology, Siwi, Adam, Wezarek should be the most expensive fighter on the card. How dare you make a guy who's 14th ranked in there's 13 guys at heavyweight better than him just in Europe.
Yep.
Just in Europe.
That he has a
so, Anthony Hamilton's been knocked out 2 times in less than 8 months.
Horrible. Good point. More of a reason I shouldn't do it. More of a reason.
He's from Jackson Winklejohn. But, to me, that being said, hey, John Jones, you got any of that stuff that you used in that fight against DC, and we go into a country outside it ain't there. And you mind if I need it? I mean, out of the UFC anyway. Even if I pop, I'm out of the UFC anyway. I need to win a fight. So, Anthony Hamilton, you better get on them hoist steroids because I have him too, KO round 1. I will not friggin'... It's like my head's too educated to put a new guy at this weight. And I think... which this is where we disagree a little bit. I think Spitz is a guy to watch, and I actually think he's going to be going places in this weak division. I think he's long, lean. He has the kicks. Like, his leg comes up almost in like a Struve style where you're like, yeah, how did he get that up there? Flash punches, all that stuff. I think he's actually interesting for the division. So that knockout doesn't make me...
surprise you too much.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me too much. I had Spitz all over that card. The Fortuna... KO punches 7 months ago. I feel like it cost me. I had Ngannou. I thought getting knocked out to Spence and Ngannou for Hamilton. I'm like, okay, poor guy, you fought Spence and Ngannou. But who is this other guy? My only worry is he going to try to submit him? Is Anthony Hamilton not going to be ready for that? No, he's at Jackson Wink.
American wrestling.
Yeah, so I'm okay. And if it goes to second or third round, I think Anthony Hamilton out-cardios him, and it gets less scary.
But it's if that chin... It's so scary because that chin, he gets dinged, and all of a sudden... I just could see him ruining my nights. So
I'm not going to put him everywhere.
You can't put him everywhere.
No, but put him on a few.
Yeah.
I probably won't have... I might have Siwi on 1 or 2 just because
for backup.
It's like, whoa, you're this big of a favorite? Who are you? 9'3"? Yeah, so I have Hamilton KO round 1. Take it for what it is. I don't feel great about it because I don't feel great about Anthony Hamilton. But who is he fighting? Who's this other guy? All this being said, if weigh-ins happen and this guy looks like a beast, run away from Anthony Hamilton. He will not be our Leslie Smith underdog pick at all, ever.
No,
even though we both say it, he might be the biggest underdog of the night. I will
options.
Never, ever put Anthony Hamilton as our Leslie
It's
Smith
just,
underdog.
this is a specific stylistic fight matchup of why we're even going this way, because it is not a solid play at all whatsoever. But this could be one of the fighters, either one of these fighters that gets you 100 points in a fight, because that's the type of division we're in. Moving on to the next fight, we have a lightweight bout, 155 pounds, with another fighter that's coming off of a 3-fight losing streak. Marcin Held versus Nazrat Hapquaris, who is out of Germany, looking a little bit like Kevin Gastelum, debuting in the USM, Baby Stellum. So, the debuting fighter is coming off of an 8-1 record. I did not have a chance to watch this 22-year-old's fights, but being 8-1 and being out of Germany, we've just seen with the Dennis Sievers and a few other fighters out of there, the competition level also just isn't at the level, and most people are coming to America to get that type of exposure. So moving on with Held. Held is coming off of the 3-fight losing streak out of Poland. He's been in the U.S. off and on out of Bellator. Was going to be one of these Bellator guys that was going to really show people amazing debut in... People thought that he had potential title contention and coming
Hype
off of
train.
three losses in a row. Hey, I bid on it. I picked Held in a few fights, even I believe in the last one. But as his record goes in the UFC, Held, it is 0-3 in the UFC, losing to Diego Sanchez 11 months ago. Then he lost to Joe Lozon in a split decision, which is much more of a credible fight, 8 months ago. And then as of late, 4 months ago, Marcin Held was privy to one of the worst KOs we've seen in a long time. He went for an Imanari roll in a gassed fight when he was gassing a little bit in a fight against Hadzovic, and that switched little knee step right into the temple, and Held was out cold. That was a pretty brutal knockout. What I do like what Held was doing with that fight was he was constantly going for the takedown, and that's what was gassing both fighters so much. Everything goes to Hadzovic. He definitely timed perfectly and deserved that KO all the way around. But with the 25-year-old fighter, I think that this is a real test at his competition level. If he can't beat this debut fighter that has gotten a lot of knockouts, ground and pound wise, and TKOs, but he's fighting fighters, and this, what's his name, Nasrat, he doesn't have a nickname, so
Hakparast.
He's fighting 0-0 fighters.
Nasrat Hakparast.
Nasrat is fighting fighters that are 2-1, 3-4. I mean, it's just 0-0 as of a year ago. He knocked him out. 0-0 TKO. Like, he's fighting dudes off the street. 5-1. Marcin Held has fought much higher competition. He's in the same boat as Anthony Hamilton. I would probably pick against Held in most other fights.
I agree with all of this.
Most other fights.
I was going to say this fight's the exact same, but we can't be right about both. Like, we can't, because Held, can you imagine if Held and Hamilton are the guys that keep it together for your card?
Night, it's going to be unreal. Unreal. I got Held submission round 2 just because I don't believe Nasrat. He's a local guy that they brought in, even though he is from Germany, stone's throw away from Poland. I got Held submission round 2 or 3 just because he really knows what it is to go into later rounds. He's had 3-round fights and championship contender fights. He knows how to get into gritty fights. Every single one of the fights I said that he lost decision and or TKO was a hard-fought battle, and I just don't see Nasrat being in those yet. I think Held wins with tenacity. His head trauma gets me a little bit. It has me a little withheld on Held.
I'm nervous about that for 4 months ago.
So
but that was like so brutal. Usually Held can take the damage. Just being in there with Joe Lozon alone, usually he can take damage in fights, even if he loses them.
He's had these 3 fights within a year.
I agree.
Like, it's a lot.
I'm this for everything he said. I don't have to reiterate it.
I'm going to sketch that on him. I'm going to say put him on a couple cards, not too much, just like Hamilton.
I would even say don't put Held and Hamilton on the same card. Even if you think the same things we think, don't put them both on the same cards.
Not the expensive
one
cards.
Of them is
not the expensive cards.
Yeah, one of them's going to fall short.
Yeah, agreed. So, a very sketchy second round submission. Moving on.
I have a sketchy third, so.
All right. Moving on to the next fight.
Only because I don't know enough about the other guy, and he's not even number 1 in Eastern Europe.
And he's fighting 0-0 fighters.
Yeah, the last 2 fights he knocked out, they weren't 0-0, but the 3 before that, 0-0. So as far as I'm concerned, he said 2 real fights, and awesome. He knocked him out. Held has to win this fight.
Agreed. His contract, same as Hamilton. It's weird how both of those fights are right there. But we're getting into the main event here. I believe it switches over to the FS1, and then it'll be FS1 for the whole rest of the night. We're going with Jonathan Wilson versus debuting. We got another debut.
Double debut.
And then for another sense, for sure, we have Oscar Piechota. Piechota? It sounds dirty.
That seems right.
Piechota. So Wilson, being a 7-2 fighter, getting his only losses in the UFC, he's coming off of the Ultimate Fighter, losing a couple of those exhibition bouts as well. He lost a year ago to Henrique da Silva, Frankenstein himself, in a ground and pound TKO. And then prior to that, Wilson ended up losing a, he lost a decision to Kudalaba, and then to Henrique he lost a TKO. Then he beat Chris Dempsey prior to that, who's Dempsey is no longer in the UFC. And it was just really because he made a run on the show. He didn't win the show, didn't even get close, and they were like, here's a couple fights. He beat another guy and has been on a 2-fight skid. Here at 185, I think he can lose another fight and still stay in the division. They're just that lacking in this division. And he's a solid body. I believe he's moving down from 205. And with Wilson, one of the things that I really didn't like and haven't liked throughout his career is his gas tank. It's always been very, very
and
lacking.
It's going to be worse trying to cut that extra 20 pounds.
Or is he the type of fighter that needs a weight cut to get him into shape? Because that has been, I've known of many fighters that they're just like, yeah, I could fight at 185, but I'm slick and fast at it's just not do it too much, not overly cut. And that is a big difference. I wonder if he's done a couple test cuts either way. Wilson's gas tank, what I'm really worried about, all-around game, not shabby anywhere. His striking, not that flashy. He has power because he has looping punches. But his ground game, I feel like he controls people on the ground, gets TKOs when he usually wears them out. Big wrestling base with him. Pachocha, or his nickname is not even
his
easier.
Nickname Snatch. That's not his nickname, everyone.
Hey, what is it? Imadlo? Why? No, Pachocha. I like Pachocha.
I like his first name, Oscar.
Pachocha. Give me
Pachota.
Pachota. Pachota. So, coming off of a 9-0-1, we have an undefeated fighter with...
And he's from Poland, so we're giving him the right accent as well. Pachota!
He's fought at 85. I didn't catch too much tape on this young man at 27 years old, 6 foot. He's coming out of the Piranha grappling team out of Poland. He's definitely a ground specialist. Tapology has him everywhere. But the submissions that Pachota is having is actually he's got a few head kick knockouts and a couple submissions. I'm not gonna lie, I can't say that I looked into enough of his tape with so many debuters on this guy, but I'm gonna end up going Pachota TKO round 2 just because I think Wilson has been very, very lackluster just because of the show. Did he even get a shot, as I was saying before? And the gas tank has always worried me with him after weigh-ins, depending on what Wilson looks like. If I can see some footage of him looking really good in the gym, maybe, because that wrestling does tend to stifle a lot of that submission game that comes over in the UK. You can be an expert like Held and get a ton of finishes, but you come over to the UFC in America where the American wrestling stops a lot of those submissions. So Wilson might be a sneaky play here. Oh, I'm going to say stay away. I got Pachocha.
I have Pachota as well, KO round 2. And the reason I think is I really love guys when they come over from Cage Warriors. I tend to like them more than guys that walk over from Bellator, more than guys that come over from anywhere else of late. If you're a guy that comes over from Cage Warriors, you're gruesome. You come in and you ravage people, you tear them apart.
It is the heavier scene in that part of Europe, by far.
Almost put a card together and put all veterans on that card. This is the only hype train I'm buying of the night is going to be Pachota. I don't like Wilson taking the extra cut. I think it's out of desperation because he knows he's not doing good in the division in the UFC, and I don't think the caliber of fighter gets any better. I actually think it gets harder going down to 185.
I would agree with that 100%, and that's kind of, I feel that as well. Hence,
and I think 205's harder than heavyweight. Heavyweight. I think the actual going lower means the technical has to get more extreme. The power becomes less important the lower weight you get. And not that power is not important. I just think that's why Demetrius Johnson can do everything he can do is because he's as little as he can.
Yeah, he's not going to knock you. Well, once that technique does get there, those knockouts do accumulate.
So, yeah, the only one I'm buying is going to be Pechoda, and it's really just because I haven't seen Wilson step up to UFC caliber either.
I would agree with that.
And the last few fights that Pechoda has fought have all been guys that have substantial records. So this is going to be the only hype train I'm buying. And the only thing that scared me about Wilson, too, was also that he is pretty good on the ground. He has an okay ground game, and I'm always questionable of guys coming in. And then I see what a heavy favorite he is by submission, and I'm like, I have knockout. Everyone has submission, so they think Wilson has no ground game. That was my only worry. So, anyway.
He lays in praise. He's not going to finish you, or if he does, it's ground and pound. Wilson does, but that can open you up for submissions if the submission expert really, that would be the time for him. But he'll get on your back and just spin around and control you for 2 rounds. Wilson will. But he gasses in doing that, which isn't a good game plan to have. So, weight cut, big factor for this fight.
Weight cut, travel, desperation going down to a division because he's not winning fights at 205, and now you're coming in against a hotshot hometown favorite. Good luck, Wilson. I'm going to put Pechoda on a few.
I agree. I'm going to put him on a few.
But I feel like the way the card's looking, he's not going to be cheap.
Agreed. Moving on to the next fight, we're going to the light heavyweights at 205 pounds with Jan Blachowicz versus Devin Clark. Could you give me Jan Blachowicz's nickname real quick?
Jan Blachowicz' nickname is Joanna Champion.
Make it easier, Blachowicz. Make it easier. Come on. Dude, that's not even English. What is that nickname? It's just letters. So against the Brown Bear Devin Clark, we have a 27-year-old Sioux Falls, South Dakota fighter coming off of Who Wants to Be a Fighter Dana White series against Jan Blachowicz, a 34-year-old Polish fighter. Really has been lackluster I bought all in on Blachowicz. I actually did a lot of tape study on him, and he just came in a little later in his career. He has had a long career at 19-7 record. Gritty fighter, good wrestling, tends to make grinding bouts of everything. He's coming off of a 2-fight losing streak to a decision to Pat Cummings 5 months ago. And then prior to that, he lost to Alexander Gustafsson via decision, which is a feat in itself. A lot of clinching in that. And then prior to that, he won the decision versus Igor Bukvajevic. But then he also lost to Manawa. Blachowicz is just somebody who's really let me down, who's somebody who I really liked earlier on. And Devin Clark, even though he's on a 2-fight winning streak, him being 8-1, that record is fairly padded. Devin Clark losing to Alex Nicholson TKO, all gas. Devin Clark, though, did move down to 185 for that fight because Dana White told him, I'll give you a shot in the UFC, but you're moving down to 185 because he just thought Devin Clark looked a little chubby. And Devin Clark moved up in weight at 205, then beating a decision over Stansberry, and then beating Jake Collier in a decision 5 months ago at 205 pounds. Both of those fighters are teetering on their UFC contracts as well. I believe Collier might be out of the UFC. So, Devin Clark is fighting out of Next Edge Academy. I think he travels a little bit. I've heard, I can't say specifically, but I've heard other people talk about Devin Clark. Maybe Winklejohn style-esque type of comings and goings. Devin Clark, those gas tank is always what worries me. And with Blachowicz, he grinds people out. Blachowicz makes no bones about it. He pushes you right up to the fence. Shitty takedown, but it's not to take you down in one shot. Jan Blachowicz doesn't have a shot to take you down in the middle of the ring. He has a shot to get to your legs and walk you to the cage, and then he gets in the phone booth and will just box away. If a TKO comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it's another fight for him. Another check mark for Blachowicz. I don't feel like Blachowicz is going to make a run at the 205 division, and I feel like he's just kind of a stepping stone. I don't even think he's a gatekeeper for the UFC. Unfortunately, it's just his already road traveled. He just came in a little late. He's battled injuries with his agent. He's had a long career. I'm going to go Clark decision because Clark, I do feel like he's been at Winklejohn's. His gas tank has been improving ever so. I do see like the leaps and bounds and growth of styles has grown more in Clark every fight, even though his fights that he's losing are less caliber. But I do think Blachowicz is just on the way out, and I'm going to stay away from this fight. I think people are going to end up... Oh, Blachowicz is a heavy favorite. I think people see that same thing with the gas issues. Blachowicz makes it gritty. I got Devin Clark maybe as an underdog a little bit here, but still, I'm not putting him on DK too much. I think that this is going to be...
Jeez, for such a crazy fight, I have Devin Clark, and maybe as a little bit of an underdog. I'm surprised.
Wow.
Blachowicz has cost me more money than any other fighter.
I agree.
And he does not have one good victory as far as I'm concerned. It's against somebody, or Latifi. Latifi knockout is his best victory.
He never knocked out Latifi that I can think of. That was Ryan Bader.
I feel like that was right when I
Ryan Bader.
Started watching
I could be wrong.
the UFC. I could be wrong too. I feel like that's why I started liking him so much, but maybe not. Maybe that's...
he did. He knocked out Latifi.
And I feel like it was the only fight that... It was why I stopped liking Latifi.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Because of that fight. And so it was such a weird... He just caught him at just the right time. That scares me with Clark, because I do think he's a guy that could get flash knocked out. I like him better at 205. I just see this as a boring fight. Blachowicz might wear out the gas tank. Devin Clark's going to do enough in the first 2 rounds that he should win the decision. Now the worry comes in. This is the first fight of the night that goes to a decision that counts with a Polish fighter.
That's what I was going to say.
So, if it's going to go to decision and you have a Polish fighter in Poland...
is going to fucking...
In Poland, you give it to Blachowicz. And Power's the last thing to go. I'm changing it on air right now.
Oh.
I'm going to go with Blachowicz decision. If they make him too expensive on this card, go with Clark all day. Otherwise, stay away from this altogether.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to be either side of this. Maybe sprinkle Devin Clark if he's cheap enough, but Blachowicz, I think, is not somebody to put tons of money on because he doesn't even get takedowns. He just pushes you against the fence. So, moving on to the co-main event, we have a strawweight bout, 115 pounds in the strawweight division. Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
Your most, I guarantee you, and for every reason should be, your most expensive DraftKings fighter of the night. KK.
A little foreshadowing, if you heard it there. We're
going to release this before they release their numbers. I'm going to get it up tonight, so you guys on your Tuesday morning lawnmower, office cubicle, jerking off in bed, listening to Lesbo and the Bean.
Walk into the train.
Put your baby away while you listen to Lesbo and the Bean.
Put it away on the train. Put it away on the train.
Put it away on the... No, everybody knows what's going on in that newspaper, sir.
Right. Nobody wants to wear a trench coat for a reason.
I don't know if you've ever been in a big city, but people are... Or a bar or somewhere weird in public where you're like, those white trash people. And the only time I've ever seen it in my life, it's only been twice in my life that I've seen it, and it's always been white people, and they're so trashy, where I'm like, I think those people are fucking. Like park bench, bar stool, sporting arena.
I've seen people come out of bars and do stuff on the side of bars. Like, yeah, it has been white people.
All gross.
True. We were playing soccer as kids, and we tried to hit him with the soccer ball. And then we learned what he was doing, and now we're big cock blocks. Sorry, guy. You're just gonna blow job on the bleachers. Damn it.
Oopsie. Now you know you're like, shit.
Damn.
Sorry,
we were like 10 and 11 trying to play, and we should just enjoy it.
The other thing, Aziz Ansari talks about it a little bit, and I thought it was a kind of funny, interesting thing, because I asked a couple of dudes at work. Because this is a problem that happens to half of America that the other half of America is completely oblivious to. And most women, every single girl I've ever met and asked about this is like, oh yeah. And most dudes are like, what? Most women I know have been driving and looked over left or right, just doing their drive, and a fucking stranger's beating off, looking at them.
Specifically driving. Because
driving.
I know multiple women that I've known be in shopping malls and be flashed. Like them putting shoes on and looking up and being like, what do you think about this? Is literally what the guy said. And these are like high school girls.
Yeah, I was pretty young. I was like 19.
Fucking dirtbags.
But every girl I know, driving. I'm talking about driving. Driving in the middle of the country. Driving
Is that dangerous or incredibly skilled?
Probably both a little bit.
A little bit of both.
But I don't know. I can't imagine being that turned on while I'm driving. I feel like I'm in a death trap. And not that, I don't know, but just the
To
amount,
each- I would
most
say-
men are like, what?
I would say to each their own, in your own privacy, though.
In your own privacy.
In your own privacy.
All arched up showing me.
Yeah, public
Like,
place is public.
What are you doing?
Right? Even if you just take the van window so nobody can see you, but if you're blatantly, like, sticking your hips up.
Yes,
Yeah,
arching.
to show.
Yeah.
To, like, look.
So just ask
Creep shows.
randomly,
Creep shows.
yeah, girls you know, so you don't seem like a creeper. Just talk to your girl. Hey, have you ever just been randomly driving ever in your life and seen a dude jerking off at you? And like where they look and you're like, what? I'm driving, you fucking creeper.
Right.
One time I was driving with friends cross country, and me and my other friend, she was in the back or I was, and the other was in the passenger seat, and then our other friend was driving, and we were just being girls, maybe like thumbing through magazines and chit chatting or whatever, and all of a sudden we looked over and this guy was like all arched up, like ha ha ha, like the Joker, like Jack Nicholson's Joker, looking at us, like, and we were like, ah, and our friend who was driving was like, I never get to see anything.
Damn it. Damn it.
We were all horrified.
Me too. She's the one. And it's always the one that's like, damn it, every time.
Damn, I never get to see it. Anyways,
Though
back to
I will
Oh, yeah, go on.
I will say a couple things I have seen is being on a wrestling bus going like other parts of the state or other states. I've been flashed by women. The whole bus has.
Okay.
And
Girls do that little titty action.
Yeah,
I think you might see as much titty
but
as you
it's
do
not
a moon.
jerking it. Jerking it's
Yeah,
a
I don't
different
even
level.
mind flashing where like somebody moons you.
Yeah,
That I get,
that's
or
fun.
boobs
That's
against
funny.
glass. I understand all that, but jerking it's like imagine if you were driving and you were like. And like some woman, like, and probably it's usually older to like an older person. So like some, 50
So it's an adult. It's not a 19-year-old. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
you're
know.
young. Let's say you're 19, but it's like a 30-year-old woman, and all of a sudden this woman's looking at you, and she's all hips arched, putting the needle on the record. You're like, what? What are you doing, lady?
True.
It's such a different world for a dude, but ladies would never do that. You would be more likely to see a guy looking at you beating it and being like, ha 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 ha,
True.
than a woman.
Very true. Very true.
Even yourself. It's just
it's not right.
it's just not right. Now, perfect segue to let's talk about KK. Speaking of,
Here at LaTB, remember subscribe on Twitter.
I wonder
and
what
Facebook.
I know. Subscribe at Twitter at Lesbo and the Bean, lesboandthebean.com.
You ever seen a lesbo with her bean out of the street? Tweet us if you have.
Please don't send us those pics.
No, sorry. So, moving on.
We should run a poll though to how many women have ever had that happen to. Anyway, go on.
It's going to be a lot more than we all like, and most people think. So, the co-main event, KK versus Jody Escabel. We have a Albuquerque native going across the pond in her debut, coming off of a split decision win over Danae Benet. Couldn't tell you who she was. She's out of Invicta, coming off of a few losses and decisions. Carolina coming off of a 2-fight losing streak, being out of Poland 10-2. Carolina definitely being one of the cutest MMA fighters out there, with specifically cross-legging every photo she does in. That's
So
her
cute.
style. Get it, understand it, world. She's doing that on purpose. She looks innocent.
It's her shy look. She does it in the cage. She does it when she does weigh-ins. She does it anytime she does a photo shoot. You're right. It's her cute little thing, whether she has heels on or no shoes at all. That's her stance.
Right, it's her flag.
I love it.
Me too.
It's something different.
And-
Nobody else is doing it. She's not trying to be Conor McGregor. That's her. KK.
That's her. It's KK. So, the 31-year-old Escabel being 31 to the 32 KK. KK also being the 2-inch reach advantage in the striking, with a 2-inch reach advantage in height as well. KK going to be the bigger fighter here. I could break this down for days, or I could just say Jody Escabel is taking a huge step up in competition, fighting one of the top 5 fighters in the 115-pound division. Carolina only losing to Claudia Gadelia via decision, and 5-rounder Joanna Jezerjadnik, champion in a 5-round decision. And I'd say one of the people that arguably gave JJ one of the toughest fights that she's had to date. I just like Carolina all day. I don't know if the finish comes, though, just because I think Escobar is a grinder out of that New Mexico Jackson Winklejohn. They know how to get a fighter ready for fights. Escobar's ground game is what you want to stay away from, but if Gdansk can't submit you, then I don't think that Escobar has a shot.
She did get submitted by Gdansk.
I think she did. Still, Gdansk is a much higher caliber of a submission artist than Escobar. Escobar's wrestling is how she gets her down to the ground. She has okay wrestling, but I think Carolina's been working on it ever since her last few fights. I think Carolina wins a decision like she usually does. It's a pitter-patter. I don't know if this score is really high for either fighter. I'm thinking I'm going to stay away from this one on DK, but I do have Carolina in a decision. Maybe TKO later on in the third round, but really thinking decision. What do you think goes on in this
I will have Carolina everywhere. It will be crazy if she gets anything happen to her. I kind of feel with KK what happened to Tony Ferguson, and Tony Ferguson did this train, and then the Khabib fight fell out, and then he had to retrain for a whole new fight with Kevin Lee. And after the fight with Kevin Lee, I think that's why we saw such an emotional Tony Ferguson, because he finally got to release a whole amount of pented up months and months, almost a year of energy. I feel like with KK, her finish with Gdansk was so fast that she didn't get to release that. So I think we're going to see her unleash. I think this fight is a gimme from the UFC because they love KK so much. She's interesting for the division. I agree with you all day. She hurt JJ more than any other fighter has, and I would be interested, and I would bet that JJ would say the same thing. I think Carolina's worth the points. She might be expensive, but I think she's a volume fighter all day. Tons of punches, tons of lower leg kicks. It's a cut or a win by 1,000 cuts. That's how Carolina's going to beat you. I hope it's at least over 90 points. I think even with the win, it will be. I hope her takedown defense is better. I think she was trained for that Gdansk takedown too. She knew it was coming. It's just, I don't even know what happened. I don't think she did either. And she knew she was in too quick, almost like she was in training for that rear naked choke. Was it a rear naked choke?
It was
yes,
a rear
yes.
Yep.
And so I got Caroline all day. I think you put her everywhere. I love KK.
I love her too. I might put her on more than I was initially letting on. You persuade me to putting her on more. All the way around, we don't need to get into that one much more because we have our main event. I feel like if you've been listening to us here at LaTB, you should feel a little bit of a precursor to what's going to be going on here. But we have Donald Cerrone leading this at 170 pounds versus Darren Till in our main event, 5 rounds. Donald Cerrone's coming off of a 2-fight losing streak to Robbie Lawler in a decision 2 months ago, and then a TKO loss to Game Britt 6 months ago, which was a body shot set up to a TKO. If anyone said it, we've said it here. Donald Cerrone to the body will always get you a knockdown or a hurt Donald Cerrone. It just happens. He's had major surgeries in his life, and it just is. Brown almost beat him before he got knocked out with that head kick. Donald Cerrone is somebody who's, you have to get him out of there in order to finish the fight. He will be on one leg and keep throwing a punch. You could take every limb away from him and he'll be headbutting you to try to finish that fight. But you can finish Donald Cerrone. Darren Till being a 24-year-old fighter at 6 foot. Donald Cerrone being 6'1". Donald Cerrone moving up to 170 pounds because that 155-pound cut was too hard. Coming out of Jackson Winklejohn, the reach advantage is going to go to Till at 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Darren Till being 15-1 coming out of England, but Darren Till notoriously has come out of a stratified team in Brazil. He moved over there when he was a young lad and had beat a bunch of kickboxing competitions in MMA and going in through MMA and realized he needed to get his ground game. Darren Till has a sneaky ground game. He is a striking coach, I believe, for Alliance type of gym in California. They're not updated here, but he has affiliations, or he might just be affiliated. Darren Till is not shy of traveling the world, seasoned in that at the 24 years old. The really interesting thing in this fight for me is that Donald Cerrone and Darren Till have had kind of the same upbringing in fighting. Donald Cerrone fought frequently and all over the world early on in his Muay Thai career, where he would take fights on 3 days' notice in Thailand, and 2 days would be travel. He'd fight and then go back home. Darren Till has done that type of stuff and really dedicated his life to MMA. He speaks Portuguese. He's about to have a kid. Darren Till's striking is elite, but it hasn't really showcased because he hasn't been able to put it all together. At those young 24 years old, the seniority of Donald Cerrone really plays a role in this fight. The gas tank for Donald Cerrone plays a role in this fight. The diversity in the later rounds go to Cerrone. Darren Till has wilted heavily in most fights, and that's because he's a guy who weighs 205 pounds of muscle and cuts to 170. Has a lot of size and power, but hasn't been able to land that power shot that he did earlier in his career at this UFC caliber because it's a different level. Donald Cerrone is that next level, and I'm really torn in this fight. I'm a diehard Donald Cerrone fan, and I see that he's a heavy favorited, but I think Darren Till can make this a disgusting, boring fight, and I think we're going to get a lackluster game plan in Darren Till tying up this fight. Cerrone can win it in the later rounds, but I see Till holding on to a sloppy decision. I got Till for the decision. I know that's a big contrarian and underdog, but I see it, and I have the many underdogs. This might be. What do you feel goes down in this fight for Donald Cerrone?
I don't like this fight for Cerrone at all. I think Till walks around as a far bigger man, and Donald Cerrone walks around as a guy that could still fight at 155 if he wanted to. That is nerve-wracking to me. Donald Cerrone has also proven if he can't get those kicks off, if I know about Donald Cerrone's kicks, I got to think Till's training for it. Till is too young. What is going on with him right now to be at the level he's at for 24, fighting Donald Cerrone in a main event in the UFC? Cardio is my only hope here. Everyone's like, well, he lost to Lawler. But that was not Lawler and Cerrone like we normally see.
But that was 2 months ago, and that was a brutal fight.
It was brutal enough. And right before that, and the body shots, the Jorge Masvidal knockout, which we all said, and I feel like Jorge walks around like Darren Till. This is Till's star-making moment right here. I think he finishes this later than we think. I'm going to have round 4. I could move it up. It's all going to be the weigh-ins. I really want to look at him. I think Till is going to be huge compared to Cerrone. Yep. Even though height-wise, Donald Cerrone beats him, I just think girth, Till is too young. Donald's taking too many fights, which is always Donald Cerrone's downfall. Traveling.
I think we're going to see Till move up to 185 potentially before his UFC start.
Totally
There's like no way around it.
And I even think maybe 205 after that.
Yeah, I agree.
I just don't like the size difference here. Till should not be this big of an underdog. I know everybody loves Donald Cerrone. And
the hype is alive.
And a lot of Donald Cerrone's knockouts, the last 3 even, they're just not, they're against guys that should have been out of the UFC.
Matt Brown, who's fading.
Till is a hungry beast, young kid. Donald Cerrone's a cool enough guy. And Donald Cerrone's a cool enough guy to let a young kid.
Yeah, he'll pat him on the back and say, damn, this kid's good.
And let him use his star-making power to make this kid enormous.
Because he beat him. He still got in the ring with him.
I'm going to go with Till, knockout round 4. I think he puts it all together.
We got our underdog pick of the
I think Leslie Smith underdog pick.
We have a few underdogs tonight. This is going to be a fun night. This is going to be a fun night. It's just going to be weird shit. Maybe we get another double draw.
Maybe a double D night. We got, I think, a triple debut. Maybe a quadruple debut.
I think it might be a duple debut.
And then also, we might, I'm not going to say it, but we could also get double episodes this week.
Oh, man, bringing it hard.
So make sure you follow us at Lesbo and the Bean. Make sure you're subscribing and liking so you can get all the latest on everything, LaTB, and follow us on Twitter at Lesbo and the Bean.
Lesbo and the Bean!